On the 2nd of February, 2014, more than 100 million Americans sat down to watch the Super Bowl. Somewhere in between the beer commercials and the car commercials, a phone rang inside a RadioShack store. A bored clerk picked it up, turned to his coworker, and delivered the strangest confession a company has ever paid to broadcast. The 80s called. They want their store back. Then the doors burst open. Hulk Hogan, Alf, Mary Lou Retton, and a whole parade of 1980s icons stormed in, stripped the shelves bare, loaded everything into a DeLorean, and peeled away from an empty store. America loved it. The stock jumped the next morning, and for one strange night it felt like the old brand was finally in on its own joke and maybe even cool enough to survive. 1 year and 3 days later, RadioShack was in bankruptcy court. The easy version of this story blames the internet, or the smartphone, or simply time. The easy version is wrong. This was a company that sold electronics through every electronic revolution of the 20th century, and it survived each one by selling the parts the future was built from. RadioShack did not die because technology moved on. Technology was its whole business. It died because it fired its best customer, the tinkerer, and bet the entire company on selling other people's phones. To understand how strange that choice was, you have to go back to the beginning, because the beginning is two brothers and a boat. In 1921, Theodore and Milton Deutschmann opened a small shop in downtown Boston, selling equipment for ship radios and amateur ham operators. They named it after the little wooden hut on a ship's deck where the wireless gear lived, the RadioShack. For the next 40 years it stayed a niche business, run for people who knew what solder smelled like. It was also, eventually, a badly run business. By the early 1960s, the company had 9 stores, a mail-order operation, and a mountain of bad debt from a credit program that had gone badly wrong. It was practically bankrupt. The man who saved it sold leather. Charles Tandy ran a hobby and leathercraft company out of Fort Worth, Texas, and in 1963 he bought the dying chain because he recognized the customer. A person who tools a belt on a Saturday afternoon and a person who builds a radio from a kit are the same person. Within 2 years, the operation was making money. Then the hits started landing. In the 1970s, the citizens' band radio craze turned every trucker and half the suburbs into paying customers, and RadioShack sold that boom by the truckload. And when the craze cooled, the company made the best product bet in its history. In August of 1977, it launched the TRS-80, one of the first mass-market personal computers in America, priced at $599. Executives figured they might sell 3,000 of them, total. By some counts, half the personal computers sold in America the following year were RadioShack machines. Stop and appreciate that. Before Apple was Apple, the biggest name in home computing was the little parts store in the strip mall. At its peak, the chain ran more than 7,000 stores across the United States, and the company liked to boast that 94% of Americans lived or worked within 5 minutes of one. The slogan of the 90s said the rest. You've got questions, we've got answers, and behind every counter stood the thing no competitor ever copied. A wall of little drawers filled with resistors, fuses, capacitors, and connectors, watched over by a clerk who actually knew what they did. That wall was the moat. Nobody else in American retail wanted those customers, and RadioShack owned nearly every single one of them. The first cracks came from square footage. In the 90s, Best Buy and Circuit City were stamping out electronics warehouses the size of airplane hangars, selling televisions cheaper than a small shop ever could. The average RadioShack was about the size of a corner deli, and you cannot win a volume war from a corner deli. But it did not need to win that war. The parts wall was unglamorous, steady, and stitched into the daily life of every hobbyist, repairman, and curious kid in the country. Those customers came back month after month, decade after decade. Management stopped seeing them. A customer buying $2 worth of resistors looks like pocket change next to a customer signing a wireless contract, because in those years the carriers paid retailers rich commissions for every subscriber they signed up. So the stores switched sides. Bit by bit, the drawers moved toward the back, and the counters filled up with phones. RadioShack, the company that powered a century of American tinkering, quietly turned itself into a commission kiosk for the wireless industry. Look closely at the trade it accepted. It swapped a customer nobody else wanted, who came in for decades, for a customer everybody wanted, who signed one contract every 2 years and owed the store nothing. Then came 2006, the year the leadership crisis went public. Chief Executive David Edmondson resigned after reporters discovered that his resume claimed college degrees he had never earned. The company, built on having answers, could not answer basic questions about its own boss. His replacement, Julian Day, was a cost-cutter by trade. 1 month into his tenure, roughly 400 employees learned they had been laid off by email. The cuts made the numbers look better, and one deal made them look great. The wireless carriers had been paying RadioShack ongoing residual payments, a stream worth more than $100 million to the bottom line at almost no cost. Day accepted lump sum settlements from 2 major carriers to end those streams, cash up front, and the future signed away. Pause. The story right there. Because a deal like that is exactly why an autopsy is worth doing. A company never dies from the headline. It dies from choices like this one, buried 3 layers deep in the filings. If you want the next fallen American name opened up the same way, hit subscribe and bring a screwdriver, because after that deal, even the phone bet started rotting. The smartphone era gave the carriers their own showrooms. Apple sold directly to its faithful, and every big box store and supermarket added a phone counter. The commissions kept shrinking, while signing up one customer still chained a store employee to the counter for about 45 minutes. And here is the cruelest part of this whole file. While RadioShack was chasing contracts, the customer it had abandoned came roaring back. The maker movement exploded, and a new generation started building drones, robots, and homebrewed gadgets, doing exactly what RadioShack customers had been doing since 1921. The tinkerers returned. They just did not return to RadioShack because the parts wall had been gutted and the person behind the counter was paid to talk about data plans. So they ordered their components online, from anyone but the company that had invented the business. By 2014, the losses were piling up, which brings us back to that Super Bowl night. The ad was funny, self-aware, and genuinely admired. It changed nothing because behind the joke, the stores were still phone kiosks with dusty drawers in the back. On the 5th of February, 2015, RadioShack filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, with around 4,000 company-owned stores still standing in the United States. A hedge fund called Standard General bought roughly 1,700 of them and co-branded most with Sprint. The name that once meant American ingenuity survived as signage on somebody else's phone store. Read that rescue plan again slowly and you find the punchline. The strategy to save RadioShack from being a phone kiosk was to make it, officially, a phone kiosk. It lasted barely 2 years. In March of 2017, the new company filed for bankruptcy a second time, and now the stores just kept closing. The first announcement covered about 200 of them, and then, over a single Memorial Day weekend, 1,000 more went dark, leaving roughly 70 company-owned stores and a few hundred independent dealers. 96 years of history had shrunk to a rounding error. What happened to the name afterward reads like a fever dream. In 2020, a firm called Retail E-Commerce Ventures, a collector of dead brand names, bought RadioShack, tried to relaunch it online, and then steered the brand into promoting cryptocurrency. Federal regulators later accused the 2 men behind that firm of running a Ponzi scheme worth $112 million. In 2023, the brand changed hands yet again, this time to Unicomer, a retail group based in El Salvador. And that sale hides the twist almost nobody in the United States knows about. RadioShack is not actually dead. Hundreds of RadioShack stores operate today across Latin America and the Caribbean. And back home, a scattering of independent dealer stores still hang the sign in small American towns. Walk into one of those little survivors and you will find it. The wall of drawers, the fuses, the connectors, a person who knows what a capacitor does. The one part of the company that never stopped working is the part headquarters spent 20 years trying to kill. Zoom all the way out, and the lesson is almost painfully simple. This brand survived radio, television, the transistor, the CB craze, and the personal computer, 5 technological waves in a row, and then chose to become a middleman for a product anyone could sell. A company can survive any wave except forgetting who it is for. So give me your side of the file. Did you grow up in those aisles, and what did you build out of those little drawers? Who takes the blame here? The phone bet, the cost cutters, or all of us who started ordering our parts online? And if a real Radio Shack, the old kind, opened 5 minutes from your house tomorrow, would you actually shop there, or just visit the memory? You've got questions, we've got answers. That was the promise. Today it runs the other way. You've got the answers, and the comments are where they go.